Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go! I totally forgot about this story until I heard a similar one recently. This happened many years ago, but it's still fresh in my memory because it was just so absurd. I briefly wrote about it in my journal, and now I feel like sharing it on r/entitled people. Back then I was in my late 30s, just like the rest of our group. I used to have a friend, but we lost touch because she moved away. Her younger sister was an absolute nightmare, and her 8-year-old daughter was a tiny terror. This kid was a little devil, and her mom, my friend's sister, encouraged her terrible behavior. The kid had a knack for taking other people's things and either destroying them, eating them, or just stealing them. If you dared to stop her, she'd throw a fit and her mom would come to her defense. Naturally, her mother never offered to replace anything her daughter ruined. One night, a group of us women got together at my friend's house for a horrible movie marathon. We did this 2 to 3 times a month, always with a different theme, and friends and spouses were welcome. But one strict rule was no young kids allowed. We were already deep into our first movie along with 2 bottles of wine, when my friend's front door burst open and her sister walked in unannounced. She claimed she was going clubbing and tried to dump her kid on us, saying we were staying home anyway, so it shouldn't be a big deal. My friend was understandably furious and flatly refused to babysit the kid. She later told us that her reasons were numerous. The kid was a spoiled, destructive brat. Her sister didn't call or ask permission despite multiple warnings. This was her time to unwind with friends, not babysit her sister's terrible child. None of the movies were suitable for children, and she wasn't about to change her plans just because her sister wanted to go clubbing. When did I mention the kid was a spoiled and destructive brat? My friend didn't say all of this at the time, but she firmly said no. Her sister and the kid threw a tantrum in response. It turned out that her sister had promised the little goblin a fun movie night with Auntie. As they argued, the kid seized the opportunity to grab the remote and started playing the DVD we had paused when they barged in. It happened to be the 1988 remake of The Plop, and it was my movie. The kid began watching, and we were too preoccupied with the sister's squabble to notice. Ironically, we had paused the movie right before a particularly horrifying and gruesome scene where a little boy gets grabbed, pulled underwater, and emerges half-melted and screaming before being dragged back under to be devoured. Of course, the brat freaked out and started crying, which alerted her mother. She yelled at us for letting her child watch our disgusting movies, probably throwing in a few F-bombs, and then demanded to know who the movie belonged to. I didn't specifically like this woman, so I got up to confront her. Surprisingly, another friend of mine, a buff and sporty girl, who the mother actively feared, also stood up. They had a past beef from a fist fight at a party when a Uber witch flirted with my friend's fiancé, then slapped her. My friend had promptly beaten the crap out of her in front of everyone. My friend stared down at her sister and said, "It doesn't matter whose movie it is. What matters is that you came in here uninvited, gave your sister a hard time, didn't watch your kid, and then got mad when your kid once again touched things that didn't belong to her and scared herself. I suggest you take your kid, turn around, and go home." A reasonable person might have followed that advice, but Uber Witch wasn't known for her intelligence. Instead of leaving, she turned to me and got in my face, probably thinking I wouldn't retaliate because she was smaller than me. She was right about that, but she was also very wrong. I've always had a temper, and it often first manifests as sarcasm. But when pushed too far, I won't hesitate to stand my ground, regardless of the other person's size. She started screaming at me, a cacophony of nonsense I didn't bother to listen to, except for a sentence or two like, "We needed to care for her kid." When she paused for a press, I responded, "Why is it our job to watch your kid? None of us pushed her out of our womb." She gasped, just like in a graphic novel, and she screamed in my face, "You have a son!" I was getting really mad at this point and retorted, "Yes, I do have a son. But do you see him here? No. Well, that's because I'm not a self-centered jerk who bring him to an adults-only gathering or dump him on others without asking. This set her off even more and she tried to slap me. Fortunately for me, she fought like a girl. Unfortunately for her, I don't discriminate when it comes to defending myself. As she pulled her arm back to strike, I moved slightly to the side, grabbed her arm, rotated it behind her back, yanked her hair and slammed her face into the nearest wall, pinning her arm. It felt oddly satisfying. She struggled and cursed, but I wasn't letting go. I gave her 3 choices. Leave with her kid quietly, have me beat her in front of her kid, I'd never do that but she didn't know that, or have me call the police and her ex, who despised her because she cheated, to come pick up the kid. She reluctantly agreed to the first option, but then tried to get her sister to side with her because, you know, family. My friend responded by taking her keys and removing her house key. She firmly told her that neither she nor her kid were welcome in her house and to get out. The entitled mother's shock was palpable and she looked at all of us for support. We just glared at her. Realizing nobody would side with her, she grabbed her kid, hurled some choice insults at us, especially me, and she left, slamming the door behind her. My friend apologized to us, but we all knew her sister was a jerk in this situation. She immediately called her parents, warned them about her sister's antics, and advised them to go anywhere else unless they wanted to watch the Brat all weekend. Her sister had pulled similar stunts multiple times. In the end, the entitled mother missed out on her clubbing plans and eventually lost custody of her kid to her ex. It was a fitting consequence for her irresponsible behavior. So, I'm pretty new to the work world with just about 5.5 months under my belt at the car wash where I work. My job isn't anything fancy, but it pays a bill and I like it. It's a simple job and it keeps me busy. I've been getting into the routine of work and there is a specific uniform I have to wear. The shirt and apron I put on for work happen to be partially red in color, and that's where the confusion comes into play. At the end of my shift, I'd usually head home on foot. It takes me around 20 to 30 minutes to make it back. And on my way, I often make a quick stop at a nearby grocery store to pick up some drinks and snacks. It's a bit of a routine for me, you know, unwind a bit before going home. Now one day I goofed up big time. I forgot to change out my work uniform before heading to the grocery store. So there I was, still wearing my car wash shirt and apron. The grocery store employees had a different uniform, a button-up shirt with various colors, which was quite different from mine. I wasn't aware of my mistake until I found myself standing in a drink aisle trying to decide what to buy. And that's when it all started. I felt a tug on my uniform sleeve and I turned to see the classic Karen. She was a bit shorter than me and I stand at 5'10" and I stepped back thinking I might be blocking her way. But it wasn't about the aisle space. The problem was something else entirely. "Excuse me, you're out of this soda brand, and I was wondering if you could go in the back to get some more," I replied. "Oh, I'm sorry, but I don't work here." Then I continued to browse a selection of drinks, hoping that would be the end of it. But Karen insisted, "Of course you do. Now go get me the soda." I tried to be polite and said, "No, I don't." I pointed at the car wash logo on my shirt, hoping it would clear things up. But she completely ignored it. She wasn't giving up easily. "Give me your name because I'm going to complain to your manager." I knew that the manager of the car wash was on vacation in Hawaii, so this didn't faze me much. I shook my head and whispered, "I won't give you my name. You don't need my name, because I don't work here." But she wouldn't take no for an answer. "You do need to give me your name." "No, I don't. Now please, I just want to," she interrupted. "Give me your name now." At this point, Karen was panty screeching and I started to feel a bit uncomfortable. Just then, an employee who happened to be a friend of mine came down the aisle. The employee asked, "I am hearing a commotion. What seems to be the problem here?" I tried to explain the situation, but Karen cut me off and started ranting about how I was being rude, lazy, and should be fired because the customer is always right. My friend, who knew I didn't work there, tried to reason with Karen, but she was having none of it. "I demand to speak with your manager about this employee," Karen yelled. My friend calmly replied, "Please do not yell. There are other customers than yourself and him." "He's not a customer. He's a worker." Now give me the manager, or I will have both of your jobs." My friend decided it was time to call the manager, but before the manager could arrive, Karen took things to a whole new level. She grabbed my collar with both hands and threw me toward the manager, knocking him over. That was the last straw. The manager told his employee to call the police. As Karen realized the gravity of the situation, she freaked out and made a run for the exit. But as luck would have it, running in high heels is not the best idea. She lost her balance and fell over. It was almost comical in a way. In the end, she was arrested for assault and I managed to escape with my drink for free. It was quite an eventful day, to say the least. I couldn't help but shake my head at the audacity of some people. It was a strange experience, and one that I won't forget anytime soon. This happened a few years ago and I want to share my story with you. A tale of how I got sweet pro revenge. You see, at the time, my fiancée, now my wife, and I were on a quest to find the perfect dresses for her bridesmaid for our upcoming wedding. We were driving all around town, from one place to another in search of something that would make her happy. It had been a rainy day and the roads were pretty slick. We had just left David's bridal and were making our way out of the plaza when it happened. As I was reaching the intersection where the plaza met the road, another car came turning in. Sadly, the driver couldn't hit the brakes in time and he skidded right into the front end of my car on the driver's side. Fortunately, everyone was okay, but our cars had seen better days. As we got out of our cars to assist the damage, I couldn't help but notice that his car seemed completely unharmed, while mine had suffered a minor dent. The other driver was around 45 years old and he had his son in the car with him. We exchanged names and phone numbers and he explained that he was on his way to work. I told him we were out shopping for our wedding. I must admit I was pretty naive back then when it came to handling accidents. The other driver suggested that since we were both busy, we should handle things ourselves without involving the police. My mistake was agreeing to that. We didn't call the police and he told me to get an estimate for the damage so we could figure out what it would cost to fix. 2 days later, I took my car to a repair shop and they quoted me $1,100 for the bumper replacement. I texted the other driver and he assured me that in 2 months he would be getting scholarships when he returned to school, and he could pay me in cash at that time. Again, naively, I agreed, thinking it was a fair arrangement. A week went by and I followed up with him regarding another estimate I had received, which was lower than the original one, just $900. But to my surprise, he never responded to my messages. I sent more texts over the next few days, but still there was no reply. And that's when it hit me. He had bailed on me. Frustrated and feeling deceived, I decided it was time to take matters into my own hands and find this guy. All I had was his name, a useless phone number, and a general idea of where he worked. I took to Facebook trying to find him and I was pretty sure I had struck gold. I looked through his family members and found what appeared to be his son. My soon-to-be sister-in-law was around the same age as his son. So I decided to go full-on detective mode. I used her Facebook account, changed her last name to match theirs, and messaged the son. I told him I thought we might be cousins and asked a few more questions about his dad's name and job. He confirmed the name and place where his dad worked. I was thrilled with the progress I was making. The next day, I drove back to the area where the accident had happened and found his workplace. I located his car and discreetly took pictures of his license plate. Armed with this information, I went to the courthouse and filled out the necessary paperwork. The clerk informed me that they could either mail the form to his work address or for a $25 fee have an officer hand-deliver it to him. Of course, I paid the $25, thinking it would be a fitting way to embarrass him at his place of work. A few weeks later, we were summoned to court to see if we could reach a resolution before proceedings to a formal hearing. The other driver showed up and we sat down with a mediator. He explained everything to all of us and I told him I didn't want to go through with this, but he had stopped responding to me. He claimed that his phone had been stolen, so he had to get a new one. In my mind, this excuse didn't quite add up. The mediator asked him to step outside for a moment and then cautioned us not to trust him, as his story didn't make any sense. When the other driver returned, we read over the terms I had listed in the court documents. I had demanded $2,400, which included the original cost of replacement, gas expenses from driving back and forth, compensation for my time, and a little extra for the hassle he had caused. He agreed to pay, and he didn't like that I had gone to his job and taken pictures of his car. My response was simple. I didn't like that he hit my car in the first place. A few months later, he had paid the full amount in cash and he had to cover our court costs as well. I sold my damaged car and used the money he gave me to purchase a new one outright. In the end, I benefited from the situation, but I learned a valuable lesson. Next time, I will definitely call the cops and save myself the headache. In the end, my pro-revenge was sweet, but it's always best to handle such situations through proper channels. I, 24 female, am a seamstress/dress designer who works for private clients on commission. 2 years ago, my sister got married, and as my gift to her, I designed and made her wedding dress free of charge and all her bridesmaid dresses at cost of raw materials. My brother's and girlfriend, now fiancé, was part of the wedding party and knew I was doing this. And before I even started designing, she asked if for her and my brother's wedding, would I make her dress. I casually agreed. When actually making the gowns, my sister and her other 5 bridesmaids were so nice and pleasant to work with, but my brother's girlfriend was a nightmare. She kept asking me to make changes after we finalized the designs and I had already started making the dresses. She would cancel and just not show up to fittings, and she complains constantly of how it looked tacky and unprofessional. And she even ripped the fabric on purpose when I told her I could not make any more changes. And I had to go on a wild goose chase to get more of the same fabric in the right color. The place I bought it from no longer carried it. My brother proposed 2 weeks ago, and the first thing my new sister-in-law did was come over to me and ask when we could meet to start designing. Now, at this point in my career, I have dealt with my fair share of bridezellas and control freaks, and I know how to handle them. So I let her know when she could come to my studio for a consultation. Last week was her appointment and she came in all excited, but when I brought out my pricings and options for her, she got really mad, saying it wasn't fair to expect her to pay when we were family, and I had given other family theirs for free. I told her nicely that I charge for my work as would any other vendor she got for her wedding, and that we can look at the most affordable package I have if she was concerned about cost. At this, she totally lost it, screaming at me that I'm a worthless witch whose work isn't even good enough for her and that she was doing me a favor by letting me having this opportunity. I tried to calm her down so we could talk, but she just got worse, knocking over one of my display cases and shattering glass, beads, and expensive jewelry all over the floor. At that point, I was done and yelled at her to get out of my studio before I called the cops. Later that day, my brother called me and yelled at me for being so disgusting and unwelcoming to his fiancée. I explained to him that I'm more than happy to make her gown and her bridesmaids' gowns, but at a fair price. But he got even more upset and said that I had done our sisters for free, so I should do this one for free too, and now my parents and brother are mad at me, threatening to leave me out of the wedding if I don't make her a free dress, but I still think I should be paid for my work. Am I the jerk here? And now with some comments on the post. Someone saying, not the jerk. Print out a receipt for damages and give it to your brother and family. Then include the prices for your skills and material. Then send another bill asking for a deposit that will cover future damage and crap. Ask who's willing to pay all that, because no one in hell should it be you. If you know any other seamstresses/designers, pass the word so they know what they are getting into if they agree to work with her. Future sister-in-law should learn a very expensive lesson. But I'm a jerk like that. I'm thankfully at the stage of life where I don't give a damn about being nice or keeping the peace. Another commenter goes with, not the jerk. Your future sister-in-law is a nightmare. I hope you took photos of the damages she made to your studio. Show your brother and parents the damages she caused. Send your brother and future sister-in-law a bill for the damages. Do not, under any circumstances, agree to make her wedding dress, even if they agree to pay. The third commenter adds, not the jerk. And make sure you send your soon-to-be sister-in-law the bill for the things she broke in your studio.
And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching and see you next time.